Maraki, sounds good. Hi everyone, welcome. My name is Nadia. I'm with the War on Youth Fight. And yeah, welcome to our webinar. Before we get started, just a couple of logistical things. We do have the chat open, so feel free as we're talking to go ahead and type things in the chat. We'll keep an eye for Zoom bombers, especially with PYM on there too. They tend to come more as well. But we're keeping an eye on the chat. But we definitely, want this to be a conversation and everything. And while we are, and also the meeting is being recorded. So that's really for us to be able to post it, and obviously for folks to access it later. Feel free if as we start, I'll just go ahead and put mine. Feel free to introduce yourself. Again, I'm Nadia. You can put what you do, why you're here, and anything you want to share with folks. Feel free to put in the chat. And yeah, so today, really excited actually for today's webinar because we're going to be hearing from a program we've been working with now for over a year called STEM to the Future. And it's basically, we've been doing, last year we started with a summer program with the youth there. It's a school, and just that's been a really great collaboration. And we're going to have one of the coordinators, one of the teachers with us tonight, talking about the program and, just how we've been collaborating. The most recently, we've our comrades Akil, Maraki, and Matios have really been holding it down at STEM to the Future. So yeah, really excited to share that work with you all. We're also going to be hearing from our loved one Maraki, repping both Stop LAPD Spying and BAJI, as she just put there. And just between talking about Biden recently putting troops at the border and just the impact that has had on migrant children and families, and also be hearing from our from PYM, Palestinian Youth Movement. And my bad, BAJI stands for Black Alliance for Just Immigration. And then we'll also be hearing from PYM, Palestinian Youth Movement, who has led the War on Youth Fight with us. And they'll be talking about the Nakba Day coming up, and also similar to Maraki, just how Biden's recent move to move troops, how that's also impacting migrant children and families as well. In addition to that, we're going to have an update on the PRAs, so the Public Records Act requests. There's a lot moving with that, and it'll be really interesting to see kind of where this moves and where it takes us. So we'll be doing one of our, I guess, like mini focus group workshops, just to kind of show folks, talk about some of the documents we have connected to the War on Youth Fight, and how yeah, and just as like we usually do, really just seeing what is it that community wants to know about these programs. So that's our meeting today, a really full meeting. So really excited for that. And yeah, and feel free, of course, to ask any questions as we're talking. We'll definitely pause and make that space as well. Thank you for folks for introducing yourselves. Yeah, your name, who you are, what brings you here, however you want to introduce, and welcome to everybody in here. So just to kind of get started, I wanted to give a little bit of a background, and one more thing too before we jump in. Just wanted to kind of put a call out there to people on the meeting. There was a glitch with our MailChimp contacts. So we used to have, I hadn't done it recently, but last time I had done it about a year ago was well over 1,500, and I imagine it would grown quite a bit since then. It's unfortunately gone down to like 200-300 contacts. There was a big glitch. So our MailChimps are no longer going out to everyone that they used to. So if you can just kind of spread the word and just have folks email us saying, hey, we want to be back on the MailChimp, that would be greatly appreciated. Then we can get everyone back on. And I don't know, Hamid, if there's anything to add, or is that pretty much it? Okay, cool. Okay, nice. So yes, thank you. That's the email. So please put that call out. We want folks to get our MailChimps. We send out usually about twice a week. So yeah, appreciate anything folks are able to do with that. So I'll go ahead and get started. Again, I'm Nadia, and really great to be here with folks. And so just a little bit of a background before I pass it to Maraki. When we look at the war on youth, we know that there's many wars engaged against young people, against Black youth, Indigenous youth, trans youth and queer youth, Muslim youth, migrant youth. And so with all of this, what we're seeing now and what we've been fighting against is this very kind of explicit connection of behavioral surveillance, the gang narrative, the terrorist and violent extremism narrative all coming together, and using that to justify programs to target youth under this guise, under this label. And really, like I mentioned, it really falls under this umbrella of behavioral surveillance, which of course we know is nothing new, but has definitely become more and more solidified. And within, we know with the starting of the coalition, right, the suspicious activity reporting program is what got the coalition started, right? So naming very common behaviors as suspicious, as indicators that somebody's thinking about, right, committing a crime. And so targeting thought, targeting behavior. And within that, looking at youth being targeted under these various programs. One of them is countering violent extremism, which is CVE. And that one really just kind of targets, I don't want to say everyone, but not just youth. That one is looking at, at people who are engaged in political work, right? People who question the US foreign policy, people who question authority, and of course, right now, this violent extremism narrative is being pushed to supposedly, right, by the state to go after white extremists. But we know that's not the case, right? We know that that these programs have historically and will continue to target Black and brown people and youth. And so within this, so CVE is started by the Department of Homeland Security, with Los Angeles being one of the 3 pilot cities. So it's been here now for over 10 years. And within that is Preventing Violent Extremism, or PVE, which is an FBI specific program. And that essentially labels various behaviors of a young person. This is the K through 12 specific program that names various behaviors as suspicious, right? Being too much into your culture, questioning authority, expressing anger or frustration. So, being in poverty, being a migrant. So all of these very sort of core elements of being a young person, being youth, are seen as a pathway that a young person could become a terrorist or violent extremist. And so within these, right, the local programs that are really hitting LA fall under kind of this category called TVTP, which is Targeted Violence and Terrorism Prevention. And so within that, right, LA recently did get a grant to implement TVTP, and really these same programs, right, that I'm talking about. And they constantly are changing the names, because as public builds support, DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, has a memo saying, okay, as people are building support against it, we got to change the name, right? But obviously we know what's up, and its purpose remains the same. And so even though community and youth had blocked a grant years ago, that when Garcetti was mayor, that forced him to reject it. Of course, it came back, and it was recently implemented, TVTP. And under TVTP, the more specific program to LA is called PATH, which is Providing Alternatives to Hinder Extremism. Now, with PATH, this is really bringing in now specifically LAPD. And I just want to pause and say that, what makes all of these programs kind of especially dangerous is they're kind of pushed under this guise of, okay, this is not police, right? Because we're getting community members essentially snitch on each other, right? And so kind of that typical reformist community policing type of narrative is how these programs get pushed. And so people are like, oh, cool, well, we're not seeing the police who are here, but essentially this is the Department of Homeland Security, this is the FBI, right? And of course now with PATH, very explicitly LAPD involvement. And with PATH, it creates a team of basically informants, of mainly counselors, teachers, social workers, faith leaders, to basically report or monitor, report, quote unquote, risk youth. So youth who could be becoming terrorists or violent extremists. And so doing so in schools, right? And I think what makes this really dangerous is, we know students deserve, and a lot of youth have really just fought so hard to get cops off of school campuses. So so PATH is kind of a way to sort of seep it back in, without maybe seeing the actual cop on the campus. And so basically within this, right, we're also seeing a new school app popping up called Lazar. And basically the school app is essentially anonymous reporting. And we've done some focus groups with students and just interns we've been working with, and definitely even just a few youth we've already surveyed and talked to about this are really concerned, right? And so with these two apps, there's the one like for students, right, to basically anonymously report, and then there's the version for actual staff, for like teachers and staff members and admin to make reports. So needless to say, I mean, right, this is very much almost like the school version of like iWatch, but probably just a lot more intense too, right? Because you're inputting of an app on your phone. So I'll wait to talk about the PRAs. We've been kind of moving around some of these things. I know Akil's going to be talking about that. And so we just, we've been continuing to build it around this, working with youth and everything. So I'll go ahead and just pause there. And one thing I just want to say, if you're a teacher, if you know youth or anything, like, we're happy to come and do kind of workshops specific to youth or teachers, or counselors, social workers. So just wanted to throw that out there as well. But I'll go ahead and pause, and I just wanted to see if any questions or comments. I know that I shared a whole lot. Thank you, Akil, for putting the acronyms. Yeah, and feel free if you want to raise your hand, or if you just want to say this is fucked up. I don't know, anything you want to say or ask. And if not, that's cool.
I had a question. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Sorry, let me turn on. Hi, everyone. My name is Jubin. Thank you for this. As far as the youth that you're working with and like surveying, like, how does that come into play? How has that developed? I guess, like, what's your process for that? And I'm sure some other coalition members are aware, but this is my first time attending, and I'd just love to hear how that like grows.
Yeah, I mean, so it's over the past several years, it's manifested differently and come about differently. I mean, anything from word of mouth, right, to saying, hey, you should have this group, to working with other orgs or groups who maybe have a group of youth and they want to to work with us when it comes to like youth criminalization and surveillance. So kind of bringing that element to their organizing. We're doing workshops at our home, which is LA CAN, based out of Skid Row, or going to them. So I'm talking with teachers, going to classrooms. So anywhere from workshops, doing our own programs. And I don't know, am I missing anything? I feel like we've done a kind of a whole bunch of stuff. Feel free, Akil or Celine, if I missed anything.
So we currently have this residency with an organization called STEAM to the Future, which is what the staff member from that organization will be on in about 10 minutes to talk to us all about the work that they do and the work we've been doing with them. And then we are gonna likely have an internship over the summer with some high school youth. So there's a variety of ways, but in the past we also did arts and Skillshare, which was a really special day at LA Can, where the kids all brought their various skills, and we all brought our skills, and we did different booths. And we also have done work with college students, especially researching the ways that their universities and their colleges receive grants, not only for policing, but for research purposes, so academics are involved in theorizing and developing, different tools for the police and for law enforcement to do CVE or other related policing programs. So we're hoping to continue that work as well. And by the way, LA Can is Los Angeles Community Action Network in downtown in Skid Row.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for adding to that, Akil. And yeah, thank you for that question, and welcome to our meeting. And yeah, if you ever have an idea for a workshop or want, just hit us up. Yeah, I'll put out email in the chat. Yeah, I see your hand, Hamid.
Yeah, I also just wanted to quickly add that while the history of working with youth around these programs is more recent. Well, it's been 7 years now since PBE and CVE has been going on even earlier than that. But I think even building the coalition where it is, it started with youth as well. So in Youth Justice Coalition members who were at LA Free High School, who were 15, 16-year-old young people, were part of even our very first town hall in March 2012. There were at least about 50 youth present. So even going back then as well, and then the actions that we have had, shutting down the fusion centers, both in early 2013 and early 2014, these youth were very present and very active in that as well. Not only just so bringing their understanding, bringing their histories of gang databases and gang injunctions and the role of information sharing and how it impacts young people. So it is. So I just wanted to add that the history of working with youth is very layered as well. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for adding that. Yeah, it's a great question. I feel like we could probably kind of keep going, right? Oh, there's that and then that. And yeah, so really appreciate you both adding to that. Any other questions or comments? Cool. Okay, yeah, and if any come up, please feel free to add into the chat. And yeah, so what we'll do is we'll go ahead and pause there. Thank you for for your comments, questions. And I'll go ahead and pass it now to Maraki, who also helps lead the Stop the War on Youth fight, and is also with BAJI, Black Alliance for Just Immigration. And yes, I'll go ahead and pass it on to you, Maraki.
Thank you so much, Nadia. Can y'all hear me okay? Am I glitching at all? It's good? Okay. I'm on some precarious Wi-Fi, so forgive me if I end up cutting out. Yeah, so I just want to appreciate the intro you've been giving, Nadia. I'll reiterate, my name is Maraki. I use they and she pronouns, and I'm the Los Angeles organizer at BAJI, Black Alliance for Just Immigration, but also member and organizer at Stop LAPD Spying too. So happy to always talk about what's going on with our youth and how the system is harming them. I guess I'm not happy to talk about it, but we here and we fight in a good fight. So yeah. Wanted to spend some time today highlighting a pressing issue that's happening now at the border. And I'll talk about this very briefly, or I'll try to be brief, and then happy to take any questions that folks might have. But if anything comes up while I'm talking, feel free to jump in the chat or unmute. So yeah, essentially, if you've seen in any of the news media recently, Biden's administration is planning on sending 1,500 more troops to the southern border for so-called administrative purposes. And this is really being done as a reaction to the end of Title 42 which, if folks aren't aware, Title 42 is essentially a public health law. It's a really dated public health law that allows the US to deny asylum and migration claims for so-called public health reasons. And this was initially enacted during the Trump administration, at least most recently enacted during the Trump administration in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. We know that that's a big joke and just a farce that they were using to prevent migrants from coming in, because the administration did very little to nothing to care about COVID-19 and the pandemic and just keeping people safe. So this is really just a ploy to prevent migrants from coming in, right? But Title 42 is finally set to expire on May 11th. This is something that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were using as like one of their large talking points in regards to immigration when they were on their campaign trail. So one of their biggest things was they planned on putting an end to Title 42, and for the past 2 years, they have been delaying and delaying and delaying that happening, right? Although it's something they could have easily done with an executive order. And so after a long fight, Title 42 is finally set to end on May 11th. And in response to that, Biden is planning on sending 1,500 troops to the southern border to allegedly prepare for a large influx of migrants that they anticipate will be coming to the border because of the end of Title 42, right? We know that's kind of a joke, again, because they've known about Title 42. They've been claiming that it needs to end and now saying it doesn't need to end for many years now. People in their administration have given them a plan on how to effectively and efficiently end Title 42, but have essentially just been delaying and coming up with excuses to not do that. So now they're saying that they need to have 1,500 troops at the border in order to help with administrative tasks. Never in my life have I seen anybody with a gun support with administrative tasks. I don't know. Well, I think that they think we're idiots. I think that they think we're foolish and that we will just blindly agree to the fact that that makes sense to them, right? There's a quote from someone within the administration that's essentially saying that these service members are mainly coming for administration, right? For helping from Army units, and they're not supposed to be a part of the law enforcement, right? These people are not supposed to have a law enforcement role, but they're still going to be armed for self-defense purposes and will be performing monitoring and administrative tasks only, right? And so it's supposed to be supporting Border Patrol officials and in how they process migrant claims. But again, this couldn't be more of, wolf in sheep's clothing moment, right? It's a wolf with a gun. So you can see that they're planning on using this idea of needing administrative support as a guise for having more armed defense at the border. And we've seen what that looks like for Black immigrants, right? And it also goes to show that they truly view us as a threat, right? Because you don't send people with guns to process immigrants who are coming with clothing on their backs, with children in tow, right? With little food to eat. These are not people who are a threat. But if you're meeting them with the guns instead of with resources and instead of with opportunities to, seek asylum, to seek refuge, then there's a very clear idea of how you're being viewed and how these migrants are being viewed. And I just want to, highlight the fact that Haitian migrants were the most deported and the most expelled using Title 42 than any other immigrant groups, right? Black migrants were most affected by this, and particularly Haitian migrants. And so it again just displays how obvious it is that they're using this to target, using this as an opportunity to target Black asylum seekers and Black migrants who are coming to the border looking for support. And just wanting to also note that from the Haitians who were being deported, a very, very large amount of people were being deported were pregnant women and children, right? So this isn't just affecting, you know, your average person. Children are directly affected by this. And so this is why it's so important to be a part of the conversation when we talk about the war on youth, because Biden is actively targeting youth who are coming and seeking refuge at the border, right? And yeah, I just reiterating that Biden's had over 2 years to plan for this. It was supposed to be on his list of things that got him elected, right? But instead, he just continues to contribute to xenophobic attacks on asylum seekers. And I would be remiss not to mention the fact that when Ukrainians were in need of a place to come, Biden opened borders, laid out a red carpet, put them at the front of the line in terms of resources. I'm talking housing assistance, food assistance, getting language access, getting support needs to really be acclimated in this country. A blueprint has been made, right? I said this in a conversation earlier today with a politician, but a blueprint has already been made in terms of what it looks like to welcome asylum seekers with open arms. They're just choosing not to do so for Black immigrants, right? And then I want to also note that Customs and Border Patrol has said that, this is just meant to be a temporary thing. They're only going to be here for 90 days. And then, they're trying to invest in, some different technology and personnel so that they can reduce the need for the Department of Defense to support in the upcoming years. But again, that just means that they're going to waste more money on surveillance and other, law enforcement and other bodies that are there to, again, just prevent people from entering this country, right? This is fully an attack on migrants, an attack on children, an attack on Black communities, on Indigenous communities. And this is just another instance of how we are funding a war on our communities, right? And then also want to add that this is really just continuing in a very long-standing history of U.S. presidents using troops to fill in for Border Patrol, right? When Bush was in office, he sent 6,000 troops. When Obama was in office, he sent 1,200 troops. And Biden was down with that too, because he was Obama's VP. When Trump was in office, he sent 2,100, and then again, a few months later, 5,200 troops, right? So just because Biden's isn't to the same degree in terms of numbers of troops that Trump sent doesn't mean that it's any less appalling and egregious. Biden has deported more people than Trump did in his entire time in office. So, it's the same xenophobia, it's the same anti-Blackness, it's the same anti-immigrant rhetoric and actions that just has continued as a legacy in the U.S. We need to put a stop to it. And then just like one or two more things I'll say, and then I'll open it. I'll stop talking and open it for comments. But there's already 2,500 National Guard troops that are there, so-called assisting CBP and ICE, right? Assisting law enforcement at the border. And they're doing so under the guise of, again, if Title 42 ends, then there's going to be more smugglers, there's going to be more drug traffickers, and, our poor system is so strained, we don't have enough people there to protect our border, to secure our border. This is the most secure border in the world, if we're talking about money that goes into surveillance, money that goes into troops, money that goes into equipment needed to block off that border. It is the most so-called secure in the world. What's not secure is our migrants, is our community members who are being stuck there and left without any sense of safety, any sense of security whatsoever. And then the very last thing I'll say is that this war on youth, this war on migrants, this war on Black people is being exported outside of the US as well, right? The Biden administration is setting up migrant processing centers in Latin American countries, right, before Title 42 ends as well. That means other countries are now contributing and participating in this xenophobia against Black migrants, against migrants in general. And so just wanting to uplift that this has been going on. I mean, it's nothing new. The US has been exporting its racism for many years, and we are just seeing the newest iteration of that, right? I'll stop there. I just wanted to really highlight that this is something that's happening, and it's sort of being, swept under the rug. Media is not really talking too much about it, and people who do talk about it just think of it as, okay, yeah, not much to see here, just more troops coming to the border, no big deal. And it has very much so meaningful and harmful effects that are happening to our community members, and particularly to youth. There's tens of thousands of youth who arrive at the border each year, and this is what they're being met with instead of safety, instead of resources, and instead of security. So I will leave it there. I'm talking a lot. If anyone has questions, or if they just want to come off mute and say that that's a bunch of bullshit, I'd love to hear it, because I feel it in my bones. Yeah, Kill.
First of all, yeah, that's a bunch of bullshit. I wanted to ask what BAJI is currently working on regarding this troop surge or other current topics. I know there's also revelations. I mean, what could be more American than slavery? But these child labor, child slavery, revelations of migrants. And I'm curious what some like calls to action that BAJI has that people here on the call can take, especially if we live in California.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I can say BAJI internally has been doing a lot in terms of advocacy, legislative advocacy, and international advocacy, so that people are aware of what's happening. And recently, the UN's Emler Commission came to Los Angeles and to New York and a few other places, and BAJI was involved in having discussions about that, particularly in regards to racism in the U.S. and brutality and violence that law enforcement uses against Black people in the U.S. And so BAJI had just very recently, I think it was last week, contributed to conversations in Los Angeles and in New York, particularly in New York in person there, to really just highlight the issue of anti-Blackness that's prevalent even within the immigrant community in the US. And so that's being done to really bring international awareness. And I just want to share that the UN Emler Commission was created as a result of the murder of George Floyd, and is being done to investigate instances of police brutality and anti-Blackness globally, right? But it sparked due to the particular brand of anti-Blackness that happens here in the US. So if folks want to, have more information on that, feel free to tap into our social media, where there's more information on how, I think in the coming weeks, there should be some information shared about how those visits went and how those discussions went. And then in terms of policy, I mean, we're here right now. I'm talking to you from Sacramento, where we're having lobbying visits with different legislators and trying to just make some awareness of what's happening here to Black immigrants, both in the U.S. and at the border, right? And so working on a lot of policy advocacy to try and ensure that our communities are not being erased from discussions on immigration or discussions on racial justice. And then in terms of things that folks can do at this moment, I mean, you can contribute to public education and discussion, right? Having these conversations with people, making sure it doesn't get drowned out in your communities and people knowing that it's happening. And then, of course, you can always get tapped into the work that we do here locally. If you are Black and interested in joining our organizing and member meetings, you can reach out to me, and I'll drop my email in the chat in a bit. And then if you're not Black and you're really down with what's the work that we do and want to support, then you can still hit us up, hit me up, and we'll get you involved in our local Until We're Free table, which is essentially a space for non-Black people who are interested in the work that we do, who are down to be comrades in this fight, and yeah, just want to stay up to date in the work that we do. It's a space for you to convene. It's a space for us to, you know, plot against these systems and really try and build power. So those are the biggest calls to action I can give at the moment. Thank you for that question, Akhil. I will drop my email in the chat, but if folks have other questions or again comments and just want to, you know, shake your fist in the air, I'm here for that. And if not, I'll pass it back to Nadia, who I think is facilitating, or Akhil if Nadia is gone.
Yeah, no, I'm here. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much, Maraki, yeah, for sharing that. And yeah, just really appreciate you as a person and your work. So thank you for sharing that update with us. And yeah, and yeah, nice. I just saw that. So thank you, Akhil. And so yeah, if anyone has any continuing questions, of course, reach out to Maraki or go and put it in the chat. And we're so happy, Rafa, that I know you just joined us. So if you need a few minutes, we can maybe go to PYM. But we actually just finished hearing from Maraki just around the update around Biden sending troops to the border and its impact on migrants, on Black youth and migrants as well. And so, yeah, I had at the beginning of the meeting before you joined, Rafa, I had kind of just shared a little bit about the programs and also our connection with you all. So how are you feeling right now? Would you like to share a little bit about STEM to the Future? I know you literally just joined, so if you need PYM to go first, we could also do that.
No, that's okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you. So I'm gonna pass it off to you, Rafa, and yeah, if you could just share the badass work y'all do and our collaboration. So I'll go and pass it to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Nadia. Hi, everyone. My name is Rafa, and I am program manager for theory and practice programs with STEM to the Future. So STEM to the Future does a few different things. We have a few different programs, but the one that Stop LAPD Spying is involved with is our theory and practice programs. These are student-led initiatives in which, the students work together, they collaborate and work on identifying an unmet need in the community and work together to find a way to to meet that need, to raise awareness, or to just find a solution to the goal is just to make the communities a better place. But they do that also working alongside people from the community that are already doing, the work. So that's how Stop LAPD Spying comes in. We want to connect our kids with organizations from the community that are doing, the work. Also that orgs that kind of represent the demographic that we serve, because representation is super important, especially with the youth. You know, we want them to see that it's the people like us, the ones that are affected the most by all these injustices and issues affecting the community, are the ones that are out there putting in the work to, you know, find solutions and to make our communities a better place for everyone. So our theory and practice programs are split into 2 days. We have our theory day, which is, you know, the day in which we kind of talk about community, empathy, identity, love, you know. And one thing that we started doing differently this year is we started doing YPAR and CPAR. That's critical participatory action research. So the students have been learning how to critically analyze art and articles and, you know, anything really. We focused on 3 lenses this school year. We focused on the race lens, socioeconomic lens, and a gender lens. And what's been really, you know, impressive is that our youngest kiddos are in 1st grade. So, you know, just being able to give them these tools and guidance to be able to really analyze things critically when thinking about race and socioeconomic status and gender has been really mind-blowing to see. You know, kids have a lot to say, a lot. I think we just really need to work on decentering the teacher in all educational spaces, I think, and really centering the student and their experiences and letting them know that their experiences really matter and that they are expertise. They have expertise in their own experience, right? Who's the best to speak about the issues impacting our communities? The ones that are affected by them the most, right? So that's one thing that we continuously tell our youth, you know, you are the experts in this area. Like, we don't have to bring researchers from Stanford or from UCLA that know nothing about what it means to live in South Central, right? You are the ones that walk these streets every day. You are the ones that know what we need. So it's been really awesome to see, you know, kind of see them analyze, you know, all these different things. And, you know, like, the important thing is just, the hardest thing also is just creating a space in which they feel safe to really voice their opinions and their thoughts and their needs, right? And that's the biggest challenge, because they all have different needs. And it's just finding a way to kind of, you know, mesh and find a nice balance that's, you know, going to benefit everyone in the class. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know how much more to say. So I don't know if anyone has any questions. Or Akil, I know we kind of talked a little bit earlier. Am I missing anything that we kind of talked about?
Well, I just have some questions that are launching off of what you were just saying. I know that you did a really great activity on expertise that I think it'd be cool for people to hear about, because there might be teachers or people who work with youth. And I think that it's great because it involves physical activity, physical motion, not just thinking and talking. We also have kind of a more broad question in the chat about the age and grade range of the youth that you're working with and that we're working with. So maybe we could start there, and then I have a few other questions too.
Yeah. So the expertise activity was a lot of fun. We turned it into a scavenger hunt type thing. We had a scavenger hunt, but we also had one that involved charades. So the first one was, you know, I printed out this sheet, and in it had, like, you know, the different categories, one of them being find someone in the class that's a good dancer, find someone in the class that knows how to send a letter to a family member that's incarcerated, find someone in the class who knows how to take public transportation, find someone in the class who knows how to cook, right? And all of these things were to show that they are experts in these areas, right? Like, you have knowledge that probably isn't acknowledged in the way that it should be. And people probably don't even call you an expert, right? But you are, because you live these experiences, you do these activities, you know what it takes to make pancakes, right? Are you an expert at making pancakes? Probably if you make them a lot, then yes, right? So that was one, and that one was really powerful, I think, because I feel like you could see the shift in their expressions. They were like, oh, whoa, I guess I am an expert in this, right? And the things, I think that what surprised them the most was that they kind of felt like the activities were kind of mundane, like, for example, making pancakes. But I was like, I can't make pancakes for shit, like I always burn them, so like you, first grader, telling me that you're really good at making pancakes, like that, for me, like that's already, you're ahead of the game, right? But we also did a similar activity, and it was around charades. So everyone kind of had to act out what they're experts in, and we had to kind of guess, right? So there was a lot of funny ones, but there was, a lot of good ones. We have a student who Akil works with too. Their name is Destiny, and she's just an incredible artist. She's so, so good. She's so talented, right? But I don't think she ever saw herself as an expert, right? And I think like these activities really gave her the confidence to be able to say, you know what, yeah, I am an expert. Like this is expertise that I have that, probably doesn't really go appreciated in a regular classroom, because I feel like in our traditional school systems, it's like, oh, math, science, like these are the kinds of things that you need to be really good at to get jobs, or it's just all very almost mechanical in a way, and just, giving the students a space to really be proud of their craft and what they're good at, and not it being looked down on or as not good enough, has been a very powerful experience for me, just to kind of be able to support them in that way.
Absolutely.
And,
Oh, sorry.
yeah, and I was just going to say, it's really cool to see, because we work from students from first grade to fifth grade. So seeing even like the littlest ones in first grade, they're what, 5 or 6, kind of just take, just like watching them kind of really like gain that confidence in the things that they're good at has been, it's really an amazing experience just to kind of see that.
Absolutely. It's been amazing for me and Maraki and Matios as well to see that, each week as we do our residency. And just so people know, our residency specifically is on, abolitionist organizing and sort of like coaching, almost more than teaching, like facilitating or being helpers in their own goal of what they want to organize against. So they made a 5-point plan inspired by the Black Panthers 10-point plan, and they ultimately are planning a protest, which will likely be the first week of June. So please keep an eye out on Stop LAPD Spying social media or STEM to the Future social media to see the details of that. But they are organizing for free healthy lunches in their schools, because their food is horrible. And Rafa, would you mind telling us what some of the other groups are working on, and also what different residencies have looked like in the past with STEM to the Future, in case there are people, youth on the call, or parents with youth who are interested in potentially enrolling them?
Yeah, so I guess the first thing that I should address is that this is the first year that we have the residency program. It's definitely going to be ongoing, but this is the first year. But the classes have been pretty much the same, right? The goal has always been to identify an unmet need and then work together to figure out how we can help meet that need. So I'll start, like last year, the students, our Brick by Brick program is the health justice, food justice type program, urban farming, in which the students learned how to cook. And the unmet need that they identified was kids their age not really knowing what healthy is and what healthy foods do for your body. So they decided to create a cookbook with healthy recipes and describing like what, oh, carrots are good for your eyes, and and so forth, things like that. It was really, really cute. They conducted research at the Crenshaw farmers market. So they spoke to every single kid that they would see, and they asked them questions like, what's your favorite vegetable? What's your favorite fruit? Do you prefer savory or sweet meals? And based off of all that data, that's what they used to kind of compile the recipes to use for their cookbook. And then our students from Bloom, which is the program that Stop LAPD Spying is working with right now, they created a brand of clothing. It's called the Little Village of Love. And they just designed like a lot of cool t-shirts and jeans and jackets. And we had a mutual aid event in Little Tokyo, and there the kids kind of gave away clothing to the in-house community out there. They also sold some clothing. They had a little pop-up shop in a bookstore. I think it's called All Power Books. And then they donated the proceeds to shelters that kind of help feed the unhoused. This year, and then we have an all-girls and non-binary youth robotics team. Last year, the robotics team also focused on helping the in-house community. They created a automatic hand sanitizing machine that has sensors. They built it out of Legos. It has sensors and it just dispensed hand sanitizer. They also brought that out to our mutual aid event, and they let the community there use it. Yeah, so that was last year. This year, our Brick by Brick students are focusing on the lack of green spaces in our communities. So their project is kind of designing a green space of their own. And our robotics team is focusing on gun violence in schools. So they've designed a very impressive prototype of a machine that has motion sensors, and it pops out shields in the event of an active shooter in a school. And they've also, just for fun, created a snack dispenser.
I love that. Those I love the youth and robotics team.
Yeah,
I'm very spirited.
Yeah, and I'm so proud of them. You know, just like in identifying this issue in the community was just also very powerful and moving, right? Especially because they all spoke from personal experience with involving gun violence, right? So they're very passionate about this issue, and I'm just so proud of them. They're just so brave, right? For just, you know, coming out here and saying, hey, like, we need to ban guns. They created stickers, they're super dope. And, you know, just like creating this machine as a way, I mean, they know, you know, they talked about how they're not going to be able to stop people from shooting schools or shooting at schools. So they're like, you know, maybe we can design something to make kids feel a little more safe. Yeah, they're so brave. I'm just so proud of them.
So if we have, you know, educators on the call, I would love to hear from you about how you, like the actual kind of like the details about how you do a student-led classroom, really where the students are choosing their curriculum, you know, are creating their, you know, are deciding on their goals, are running these various aspects of the semester, and what are the challenges, and how you, and you know, how you manage to do this, because it's something that I know that many teachers would like to do, but it is challenging.
Sorry, was that for me, or did I hear you say that you wanted to hear from other educators?
Oh, sorry, that was for you, Rafa. I wanted to hear.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, all good. It's hard, right? Because the thing is, like, how do you create these student-led programs with enough balance that still provides structure, right? Because, you know, kids, you know, their imaginations are just out there, right? Like, they just have like the craziest ideas sometimes. And, you know, I think the biggest thing just to focus on is to be able to kind of help them stay on track, right? I started off creating the curriculum for these classes at least 4 weeks in advance. But after the first 2-3 weeks, I was like, this is not going to work, just because hearing kind of like the things that they were interested, just based off of the answers, right, that they were giving me, was enough for me to be like, oh, this isn't in my lesson for next week. Like, I need to change it, or I should add it because they showed interest in it, right? I think one, like a specific example was when we talked about identity. When we talked about identity, you know, it's kind of like, you know, I designed the lesson to kind of cover the bit, like what makes you you, right? But then someone brought up a point about how identities affect the way, or impact or influence the way in which you experience the world, right? It's not just what makes you you and what makes you special, but these things also make people see you in kind of a negative way, right? So it's kind of like, and that's real, right? Like, these are real things that happen. So if this is something that they're bringing up, that they're concerned about, it's okay. So that's like, I was like, okay, this is something that I kind of need to bring into my next lesson, kind of talk about, you know, what's a stereotype, right? Where do we learn them from? How can we unlearn all these things that we've learned, right? And that's so hard, right? But and you know, it's just kind of letting it evolve in that way, right? I think it's just also all about listening, right? Because sometimes kids say things almost indirectly, right? So it's kind of like, okay, I need to figure out a way to kind of, like, what does this really mean? Like, what do they mean by this, right? And also, I think talking to them, right? Like, when things like that happen, when they make comments that may be a little vague, or, you know, they're just very implicit. I feel like also talking to them, you know, like one-on-one, it's like, hey, like, what did you mean by this? I really want to know more about, you know, what you said. I'm very interested. And I think in that, it also just kind of helps build relationships with the students too, and build that trust, right? And they start to kind of feel that you care about what they're saying, right? We're not just going to learn what I say, but I'm interested in learning about what you have to say also, right? And then just working that into the lesson for the following week, right? And then they're kind of like, oh, like, we just talked about this last week, you know? It's kind of like they start kind of getting the point. And, you know, feedback that I've gotten from the kids, because we have talked about, like, what makes these programs different from school, going to school. And they, like, the things that they've told me is, you actually listen to us, you ask us what we think, you care about what we say, you just don't tell us what we have to do. You know, and I think that's something that they don't get enough, right? Especially even at home, right? Like, if you're in, some of them are like older siblings, they have so many responsibilities, and it's like, you have to do this, you know, you have to do that. So, you know, just being able to create that space where they feel heard and loved, not to say that they're not loved at home, of course they are, but where they just really feel valued, like their opinions and thoughts and, you know, everything, all of that, just, it holds a lot of value in our class. And I think they see that when we talk about it, like the following week, when it becomes part of our discussion.
Thank you, Rafa. I see Nadia has a question, and maybe after that we can just open it up to see if any others have questions.
Oh yeah, sorry. I was actually answering kind of what you'd put out there too. So yeah, I don't have too much to add, and thank you so much, Rafa, for just sharing all that. And I know, yeah, again, I teach high school, you know, working in a traditional school setting, and so yeah, I think definitely don't need to repeat everything you said, Rafa, because I do think those are all just very core to it. I really like the scavenger hunt thing about kind of doing that little survey. I think I might incorporate that. I kind of do something similar, but not the way you said it. So I really like that. So I think I'm going to bring that into my classroom. But yeah, I think the only thing I'd like to add to that is just kind of doing it in a school setting. I teach history. And so luckily, I'm not very micromanaged. So I haven't been sort of challenged on what I teach. Luckily, I'm not teaching a subject that gets such hardcore standardized testing like English and math. I think those teachers have a lot, a lot more pressure in that regard. So, but I think definitely kind of some of the challenges I've faced, is just, having, when you have like 35 plus students in a classroom, right, in a small classroom, and how to sort of navigate giving that one-on-one time. And then also I think our grading system, and I think something that you said too, Rafa, that kind of makes me think is how like, so different students are getting love in different spaces, but we know that formal education is not a space of love. It wasn't created to be a space of love. And so I think you're right. We do have to intentionally make it that way, create that space of love and just genuine validation. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to add that in the sense of like, yeah, like I hate the idea of having to like fail students, right, or things like that. So that's something. But then, they question you. Oh, well, this student is failing all those classes. Why are they not failing yours? Or so those are kind of these things that just move with in the school system. But yeah, I just really, really appreciate what y'all are doing with STEM to the future. And yeah, I just wanted to kind of answer what you put out there, Akil. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to throw my own thing out there for everybody brainstorming, as you know, when I've done music teaching, I also kind of felt this huge challenge of making it student-led, because there's also just a certain level of mechanical skills that we need to all learn together over the, but what I would do sometimes is I would have the students all choose songs to put on a collective class playlist, and then I would try to make activities and exercises out of those songs. Like if they had to learn a rhythm, why not learn it to the beat of a song that they chose and they like? And then also kind of like distributing a Google form at the beginning of every semester, asking them a variety of things about them, including other things and hobbies they have outside of music that they're interested in, and then try to incorporate those. But I mean, it's still something that I feel like I'm so far from figuring out. But at this point, would love to, hear either from other teachers or just anybody here, if you have any anecdotes that are related to this, or questions for Rafa about STEM to the future, or if you are interested in enrolling your child with STEM to the future, I'm sure that would be really great too. But yeah, I'm happy to see that. Thank you for the person in the chat who was another music teacher. Any questions for Rafa about STEM to the future? Oh, and then to answer the person in the chat, I'm not teaching this school year, but the last two I did part-time teaching, not full-time like Nadia, and it was so one class was all elementary, and then I had a 7th and 8th grade class, and then I had an all high school class, so some kind of broad age ranges.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, please, yes.
Thank you, Rafa, for that wonderful presentation. I will definitely be looking for my own, for my own kid. So that sounds really exciting, and the theory and practice and all the ways that you all are doing like research live and having it be useful and relevant. I really would love to expose my son to that. I have a question about kind of the bigger push within the STEM field, and also in particular for Black and brown youth within it, the big push to get them more exposure to like the military sciences, or the idea that like if they're going to move farther along in their kind of just like the longer like career trajectory, right, that includes in some way learning learning the STEM subjects so that they can, be useful when it comes to like issues of, protect and serve. I think all the things that Nadia laid out, really well in the intro to this webinar. So if you have a moment, to be able to just share how maybe your organization encounters that or navigates that, any insights there, that would be great to hear.
Yeah, thank you for your question. We haven't really encountered or come across anything like that. I think it's also maybe because, from the very beginning, we do talk about the importance of STEM, like what is STEM, and we do STEAM, right? Because we do incorporate art. But I think because we're a social justice org, but we use STEM within like the social justice context, right? So it's always just talking about how STEM is beneficial in solving these problems that are affecting the community and our world, right? Like climate change or infrastructure, poverty, right? Helping the unhoused, like just just issues that are really impacting the community. We haven't really come across anything that you mentioned. And I mean, I don't know. I'm almost kind of happy because I feel like I don't know how I would really navigate that, but I feel like you just gave me something to think about, something to be prepared for. But I feel like the furthest that we've gotten in talking about the military is kind of, or what the military does, or what kind of machinery they use or anything like that. The most that has come up is kind of like in a budgeting activity that the kids did with Stop LAPD spying, but it didn't really get too much into all the science behind it.
Yeah, we tried to allude to that where the money that is allocated to science, we're saying even that sometimes gets used for the military, but you're right that we only scratched the surface. Any other questions for Rafa though? And thank you, Pita. Questions for Rafa about STEM to the future or comments?
If I could just also use this time to tell everyone about our community event on June 3rd. You can find the information on our Instagram. So this is the student showcase where the kids are going to be showing all of their projects to the community, the ones I described earlier. And it's open, everyone is welcome, but we'll also have other activities. We're going to have face painting, cornhole, jump rope. There will be food. So the kids design stickers and zines, so we're going to be giving those away also. It's just going to be a good time all around, so everyone's definitely welcome to come, check it out, see kind of what we're all about.
And that is Saturday, June 3rd.
Saturday, June 3rd, yes.
Yes, so mark your calendars. And STEM to the Future is at STEM to the Future on Instagram, and STEM to the Future, I think just STEMtothefuture.org as well.
Yes.
I'm putting the links in the chat. Whoops, that's the Instagram again. Here's the website. So you can find them. And thank you so much, Rafa, for joining us. You can stick around if you want to. We're going to go to Palestinian Youth Movement next, but you're also free to go. I know you're on your way home.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm happy just, if anyone wants to connect, if I'm okay with you sharing my email too, if you want to do that. But yeah,
Sure.
thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I'll put that in the chat. Thanks, Rafa.
All right, talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. So everybody, really quickly before going to Palestinian Youth Movement, I just want to remind people that the War on Youth Fight, which is co-led with Black Alliance for Just Immigration and Palestinian Youth Movement, we meet twice a month. So the first and the third Thursday at 5 p.m. And if you would like to attend, you could email stoplapdspying@gmail.com. To get the Zoom information or to get added to the Google Calendar event. And after we hear from Stop LAPD Spying, we'll briefly discuss our various public records requests, and we would love to hear your thoughts on other things that you're interested in related to this fight that you would like to find out about. So anyway, after that plug, Celine, are you able to unmute?
Hey, yeah, thanks, Akil, and thanks everyone. I'll probably talk for I do have to go drive somewhere, but I'm gonna share about the upcoming Nakba 75 demonstration happening in Los Angeles, and I'll share also about just the framing and the analysis that we have as the PYM around what is currently happening in Palestine, and the role of us, our people in the diaspora. Just to explain why we're demonstrating on this upcoming weekend on May 13th. We're going to be mobilizing at Pershing Square at 12 p.m. noon in LA. It's because 2023 has been the bloodiest year for Palestinians in the past 2 decades. Over 100 Palestinians have been killed so far this year by Zionist occupation forces. We have nearly 5,000 political prisoners unjustly imprisoned. On May 1st, Sheikh Khader Adnan, who is a prominent Palestinian organizer and a father of 9, died in administrative prison in Zionist prisons on the 86th day of his hunger strike. And his hunger strike was against his unlawful detention. So this onslaught and what we've seen in the past several months is part of an ongoing colonial project to ethnically cleanse Palestinians from our land since the Nakba, which began in 1947, 1948, and even before then. This resulted in the displacement of over 700,000 Palestinians and created one of the largest refugee populations in the world. The massacre of thousands, the elimination of hundreds of villages. And for the last 75 years, we've been subjugated to this ongoing settler colonial project that sustains itself by displacing, imprisoning Palestinians. And something we want to push, though, is that we've seen the past 75 years, not just of displacement and of the expansion of the settler colonial project, but we've seen 75 years of resistance and 75 years of resilience and glory from the Palestinian people and struggle. And, as colonized people, we have the right to resist against violence and to defend our livelihoods and determine our future. So this upcoming Saturday, we're going to be gathering in a public display of solidarity with the Palestinian struggle. Speakers will address the evolving situation on the ground, the importance of rejecting Zionism in Los Angeles and beyond, and offer ways for our community members to get involved in the struggle, and kind of tie these connections around the way that Zionism doesn't only affect the Palestinian people in the Palestinian struggle, but the introduction that Nadia gave about the surveillance programs, the counterinsurgency programs that we've been fighting here in Los Angeles for so long. Part of the way that they've gotten cemented has been through the collaboration of various Zionist organizations in the US, working with the Biden administration, working with the Department of Homeland Security, with the FBI, with LAPD, to actually implement surveillance measures in our schools, in our communities, in our mental health services. And we have so much research and information on that we've been organizing around in partnership with the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition. And we feel that the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition brings a really important intervention into into this type of work against surveillance and policing, by highlighting the different roles that institutions that aren't technically law enforcement but definitely serve the role of law enforcement are playing. And that includes the role of institutions like, the Anti-Defamation League, which has been promoting the Countering Violent Extremism Project for the past several years. So in terms of the messages we want to send as the PYM, it's the fact that for us as Palestinian youth, it doesn't matter where we are in the world, we have a role to play in our struggle, and we have a role to play by educating and politicizing our people, our youth, uniting our community under a common banner, organizing ourselves to challenge Zionism wherever it is, that propels the continued colonization of our people and our homeland. And we also have an obligation to resist capitulation, assimilation, and apathy to our cause. And we will continue to reject the normalization of Zionism. And one of the ways that we see Zionism try to cement itself, especially here in North America, is to mask itself as a progressive movement. And so you see different organizations, institutions try to build legitimacy in different progressive spaces and coalitions. And that's something we ultimately need, of course, to reject and resist. Another important point, I think, like something we've seen in the past several months is like all these protests that have been happening right around the internal divisions that have existed within the Zionist entity, where, you've seen settler protests that have made clear like different political contradictions within the Zionist establishment and made it clear that those contradictions are intensifying. And these protests were being described like by mainstream media as an attempt to save democracy, like the quote unquote Israeli democracy. But what we're seeing is actually those protests were exposing the artificial nature of the Zionist colony. Well, all settlers are united against the external threat of Palestinian resistance. They're united in the settler colonial project. They're in favor of the colonial social order. And there is little else that is politically binding or holding the settlers together. So we reject the framing that this is a liberal democracy that's in peril, and we instead understand that this is actually a desperate attempt to save Israel's progressive image, in its public relations war, which it has already been losing for quite some time. And it's a desperation as the support for the settler project has been decreasing on a global level. We have a lot of like work that we've done alongside the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition again to highlight the role of different Zionist organizations and the various like surveillance projects that have and programs and counterinsurgency tactics that have been pushed by the DHS, more recently by the Biden administration, that we could talk about. But I wanted to highlight two projects actually that the PYM has released or has been working on for the past several months. One of them is a novel. On Palestinian Prisoners Day, we announced the English translation of Wissam Rafidi's The Trinity of Fundamentals. So Wissam Rafidi was actually a political prisoner who had gone into hiding for 9 years and then was captured and had to and was taken to Israeli prisons. And he wrote this novel while he was in prison. And this novel, it's like a really incredible story. And I'll send we just had a launch event with Wissam in New York this past weekend, where he talks about the story of how his novel was smuggled out of the prisons. But basically he had written his story in the prison. It was confiscated by prison guards. And for years, he didn't know if he would ever see that novel again. And however, it was actually smuggled out by Wissam's comrades. And he found that out years later that it was actually on one of the required readings for the curriculum for the prisoners movement inside of the prisons. And he tells this incredible story of how the novel was actually translated word for word by one of his comrades in prison. And that copy was actually circulated and smuggled out. So he was able to actually get his novel after he left the prison. So it's become a really significant text for the Palestinian prisoners movement and was liberated from Zionist prisons. And the PYM decided to take on the project of actually translating this novel into English. So I think it's a very unique process that we went through, where you had a group of youth in the diaspora collectively work on translating a novel that was coming out of, from the Palestinian political prisoners movement, because we want to share it with English language readers on a global level so that everyone in solidarity with the Palestinian struggle can experience the Palestine movement's national literature and take inspiration from its tradition of resisting Zionist oppression. And we, when we publish it later on this year, we definitely would love to have like some reading groups and events potentially together with folks here to talk more about the novel and potentially read it together. And then the second piece is we released a poster project, which is on our website, where we've our members also created a poster project in a newspaper where we created some political artwork based on the interventions that we're trying to make, this year, 75 years since the start of the Nakba, to show that Palestinian resistance is alive and well, that this is the first time that our generation has borne witness to large-scale Palestinian unity on both popular and grassroots levels, and that the Palestinian factions unification and the unification of the broader region against Zionist attempts to fragment and isolate us, just to show the significance of that. And it's within this context that we developed our first political poster newspaper, and we have a bunch of prints that will probably also, like whenever we see you all next, folks at the staff of the PD Spine Coalition, we'd love to share with you all, but just to kind of show how our youth have refused to abandon the struggle, and how we're, as Palestinian Arab youth in the diaspora, are playing a more prominent role in our national liberation movement. So we have like different slogans that we've created artwork around, how Palestinian prisoners and political prisoners in general are the compass of all of our struggles, and how we are standing unified in the face of Zionism and imperialism. So that like those are some of the major projects that we've been working on and are finally launching after several months of work, and all of our chapters are gonna be mobilizing this weekend, next week, for different demonstrations, events, and we want to extend the invitation to you all. So I'm gonna hop in the car in a little bit, but if anyone has any questions, feel free to flag them. And if I can't respond right now, I can also just drop my email in the chat. And I don't know if Akil, you want to also mention anything about like the work that we've been doing over the past several years too, against like just highlighting the role of Zionist organizations in these the CVE program.
Absolutely. And just a quick to reiterate, the action this Saturday to attend is Saturday at 12 noon, Pershing Square, downtown LA, for Nakba 75. And I put the Instagram post of PYM in the chat, which has the details for people who are able to make it. And as Celine had said earlier, some of the work that we have done is around these organizations, these Zionist organizations that actually are really represent an intersection between a lot of different struggles. So the Simon Wiesenthal Center and the Anti-Defamation League have often been the ones that we've focused on. And not only are they Zionist organizations, and by that I mean they operate as lobbies for the settler colonial state of Israel, and they spend the majority of their time and budget routinely attacking Palestinians for simply existing or for resisting in any way. But they also serve as police reform organizations. And anybody who has spent time with the coalition knows that we actually actively organize against reform. And that's because reform operates as a type of counterinsurgency. It redirects people's outrage and energy, from, the abuses and violence of policing into actually strengthening policing, into sharpening its tools, into giving the police more resources, and into neutralizing any kind of dissent. So Simon Wiesenthal Center in particular has long operated programs, including one called Tools for Tolerance and one called Perspectives on Profiling. They've done these sort of DEI style trainings, even for ICE and Customs and Border Patrol. And they have in their Perspectives on Profiling training, and this is publicly available, we found this online. They brag that they advise police not to distrust their first instincts when profiling somebody, out of fear that they might be accused of racially profiling. In other words, their worry, Simon Wiesenthal Center's worry, is not that the police are racially profiling, it's that they will abstain from racially profiling out of fear of being accused of it. So they're trying to encourage the police to actually go ahead and do that. Just make sure it's quote unquote criminal profiling, not racial profiling. It's absurd. And they on their own have received multiple grants for the purpose of combating extremism. And we have submitted records requests trying to find out the details of this. The Anti-Defamation League, it actually, as far as we know, has not directly received a grant for combating extremism, but it has always been a key partner in developing these programs, to the extent that they participated in the Boston area pilot program of countering violent extremism and came to and presented at the big first White House summit on countering violent extremism. And they have collaborated with many different locations, programs of CVE, including in Colorado, in Houston. They were listed on an LAPD slide of community partners here in LA. And the role they often play is one that we at the coalition call surveillance bureaucracy. They operate as a rubber stamp for these programs, saying, oh, we as a trusted civil rights organization say that this program is not biased and that it's targeting all forms of extremism and that it's constitutional, and they stamp it. Of course, the communities that are targeted by these programs don't care if it's constitutional or not, or that it's making sure that it also nods its head towards white supremacy too. They just want to be not targeted, right? So it's absurd that this group comes in as a supposed community organization to greenlight these programs. So this is the dual role of these Zionist organizations. They're not only Zionist lobbies, but they're also police reform lobbies. They have very close relationships to federal spy agencies, and this is not secret or conspiratorial. They brag about this constantly. I mean, you can look up ADL and countering violent extremism online to see public letters to Congress advocating for these programs. So they have been a focus of our organizing along with the LAPD. If you are interested in this intersection, if you're interested in our work, remember we have our meetings the first and third Thursday of the month at 5 p.m. And part of our work on those first and third Thursdays is research. And I wanted to take this moment to actually, I forgot about this. If there's any questions for Celine, you can put them in the chat and maybe she'll be able to answer when she gets in the car. I forgot about her offer there. Or no, you can email her. I see. You can email her at c.posini777@gmail.com. Okay. So going on. I wanted to share with you all our current records requests about these extremism programs. And just a quick introduction to what I mean by records requests for anybody who's new. Part of the way that we conduct our research in the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition is through exploiting these various laws that exist around the country. The biggest and most famous one is a federal law called the Freedom of Information Act. You might have heard of FOIA requests. They're often submitted by journalists and lawyers, but they do not have to be. And that's in fact our philosophy at the coalition, is to reject the idea that these requests have to be submitted through these kind of like information priests of journalists and lawyers. And many states, possibly every state, has its own version of FOIA. In California, the version is called the California Public Records Act, or CPRA. And basically, you can submit anybody. You do not have to be a citizen. You do not have to you can be anonymous if you would like, can submit a records request to any public entity demanding public records. And it can even be as simple as, we want these things. We want these emails. And any emails by a public official, and that includes school administrators, that includes college professors, that includes law enforcement officers, any emails are considered public records, barring certain exceptions that are built into the law. So you can just submit requests for documents, for slides, for anything you want. So we have used this tool to submit records requests on a variety of topics. We get these bundles of records, and then we pour through them together. We study them. We come up with more questions. We put together popular education tools, and ultimately we use the information we get from these records requests to organize. And then in the process, we try to pull more and more people into the very process of actually doing that research from the beginning. So it's not just us, but the community's questions are guiding what research we do and what organizing we do. And while we have a focus on the Skid Row community as the community we're dedicated to, we want to open this up as well to anybody on this call right now, anybody who's joining from other places. So I'll give you all a quick glimpse at the various requests we have open for just the War on Youth Fight. And then it would be really great to do a brainstorm of the various questions you have. I know we're lucky to have some people from the public health group here. I know that we have educators, we have people from PYM, we have people from a variety of organizations. So it would be great to hear all of your questions, and then we can turn them into records requests. So first, I'll share with you all the requests we currently have open. So this is what the portal looks like to submit records requests to the LAPD or to a lot of LA institutions. You can, in fact, you can just click make a request here, and you might have to make an account, and then you can submit requests for free. We're asking about this program. It was a long time ago in this call, but Nadia mentioned the PATH program. That's LAPD's program where they're training a team of informants to identify youth as potential extremists. So we're asking for records about, which youth have been identified, their demographic information. We're also trying to get the training information and curricula about these programs. We want to get the risk assessment tool that they're using to try to identify which youth are risky of extremism. We also know that there is a video curriculum, so we're trying to get that as well. This one, they gave us some of the stuff. We're basically trying to find the information that the LAPD would have to give back to the Department of Homeland Security as a result of getting this grant. And that includes the budget, it includes a variety of other things. This one, we just want to get all of their emails about PATH with a variety of other entities. And you'll see we are asking for their emails with LAUSD. We're asking for their emails with universities, with the Fusion Center, which is this this federal spy hub here in LA that serves as kind of the information hub for lots of different law enforcement. We're asking for their emails with the County Department of Mental Health, with the Department of Homeland Security, with these Zionist organizations we mentioned, with the sheriffs, and a variety of others. In this one, they posted on Twitter this training day that they're having for PATH, where they said that LAUSD was present, and they said that all these other agencies, the Highway Patrol was present. They just posted a photo of some people there and said, we had this great training day. So based on that, we were like, hey, we want all of the information from this training day. We want the slides they use to train people. We want the attendees. So that was one request we did. This one, we're asking for some records they mentioned and some other records they gave us, including a project budget for PATH. We wanted their, basically more documents they mentioned where we want to know what they were. For this one, this is not directly related to PATH, but it's related to extremism. We saw that the ADL was actually doing a webinar with the FBI called Left-Wing Extremism, Myths and Facts. And this webinar was for law enforcement. We also saw that they gave a recording of this webinar to a police officer. But they didn't, the records that we got didn't give us that recording. So we asked for that recording, And they actually just threw out the whole request as a whole, saying that there's more public interest in this remaining secret than there is public interest in this coming out. But I don't know if they did. Yeah, left-wing extremism, exactly right. So I don't know if they did a poll somehow and found out that more people want this to be secret, but we're actually gearing up for a potential, we're looking at the possibility of a lawsuit on this to get this recording, to see what exactly the FBI and the ADL are saying about left-wing extremism in their webinars for law enforcement. And then finally, this one is just about another training day that we saw documents mentioning. So we're basically asking some of the same questions. We want their curriculum, we want their attendees, we want to know who is being trained with what, with PATH. And then there are two other main PRAs that I wanted to tell you all about. In our training day records that we got, we saw that every law enforcement officer, when they were RSVPing for this training, they were emailing a specific email address, and that email address is pathtraining@yahoo.com. So we submitted a request that, among other things, was asking LAUSD and the County Department of Mental Health for any emails with that email address, because we basically want to find which teachers and which social workers and school counselors and therapists have been RSVPing to these trainings. So we're looking forward to hearing back from the school district and from the County Department of Mental Health to identify exactly which social workers and which teachers are signing up for and being trained in how to identify youth extremism. So this is the broad range of stuff we've already asked for. If you are interested, again, in looking through these records and analyzing what they give us, identifying some of these informants, remember, you can email stoplapdspying@gmail.com and attend our working meetings on Thursdays. But I wanted to now just, I'm going to just open a document, and it would be really great to hear some of your thoughts, your questions. What are some new questions you may have about these programs? Let me pull this up. Sorry. Okay. Hamid, yes.
Thank you. So I'm just wondering, so what would it be, like we have folks from public health here. I mean, how could this, how does this relate to the broader public health field? Yeah, I mean, what would be some things, particularly around my understanding around these programs, that they are bringing in public health people, social workers, and various other people. So is there a connection that we can build with the public health folks at this fight?
Hamid, would you actually, I can't really see if I'm screen sharing who's raising their hand.
Oh, this is Jubin.
Jubin, but I don't know if you want to write down Hamid's
question.
Mine's not related to.
Oh no, mine was not either to the CIPRA. This was a question for Akhil to, like, so what could what are the additional layers that our public health folks can be involved or interested in this?
Oh yeah, can I quickly speak to that before you?
Yeah, go for it.
So one of the academics that we are particularly interested in when it comes to countering violent extremism is a public health academic. His name is David Eisenman, and he's a faculty at UCLA. And he was actually contracted by the Department of Homeland Security to evaluate LA's countering violent extremism program. And he's continued to he seemed to have a continual role in participating in research related to extremism since. I think it's part of what he does. I think he does other kind of emergency or disaster related things that are not about extremism, but he was a literal DHS contractor. And he also had, he has publicly available, papers online advocating for the public health field to address extremism by coming up with a diagnosable like something that's diagnosed, like a objective definition of extremism that would be diagnosable. He did this thing where he tried to adapt the CDC's recommendations for epidemics to extremism by coming up with an equivalent for each type of response to epidemics. It's pretty awful. So that is one intersection it'd be really interesting to look into, is like exactly how extremism is transforming into a public health concern and potentially even a medical diagnosis, which it seems to have extreme echoes of eugenics and other types of clearly political diagnoses like hysteria or excited delirium, which are have been used to criminalize people and justify killing them. But yeah, that's just one quick thing to throw out. But Joubin, I know that you had your hand up.
Yeah, I think one thing that immediately came to my mind is, I don't know if this was like in the emails that are involved in the request, but I know there's a lot of, at least here in Miami and Florida generally, like overly, like there's a large amount of surveillance in subsidized housing, whether that's federally subsidized housing or voucher holders. So I don't know if this type of if programs based in LA work with subsidized housing, or whether that's again county or federal. That's like something that might lead to some, lead to more usable information, whether it's for this project specifically or something else. Something that came to my mind.
Yeah, thank you for that. We actually have not explored the relationship of PATH and subsidized housing, but I know that there's another program called the Community Safety Partnership Program, CSP, which the LAPD has been rolling out for a while, especially targeting public housing projects. And that is a partnership with what is the agency called again?
Grid.
No, the one starting with an L.
Oh, HACLA?
Yeah, sorry, LACLA.
Housing Authority of City of Los Angeles.
Yeah, HACLA. Oh, it's H, HACLA. Sorry, I don't know why I was thinking L. Maybe because they're taking an L. Anyway, Joubin, if you wanted to look into that, that's the Community Safety Partnership Program.
Okay.
But that's a great tip in terms of PATH. We really want to find out which places are especially reporting youth, which schools, which districts, which neighborhoods. So this might be exactly what it is. Any other, since I can't really see, it would be great if you could just unmute yourself if you have a question or a comment or a suggestion about something that you're curious about related to these programs, or related to something that you're working on that you feel like you would like to help in turning into a public records request.
I saw that y'all are having a town hall with DCFS.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done some work with public records requests here in Florida for everything like DCF and Citrus Health here, regarding the movement of foster children and how often they're moved. And it ended up resulting in a pretty big settlement for the foster children for the amount of times they moved. I just imagine that that's another project that relates to something that y'all are already organizing around. It's like the movement of foster children. So like these public record requests found that like children were moving 3-4 times and being transferred within a year. And there were dominantly, Black children who are being moved. So that's like what we were able to find. So I'd be interested in, not with DCSF, of course. Yeah, no.
That'd be a different organization.
Yeah.
Other questions or brainstorms?
I remember for ABLA, we were wanting to potentially see or we were potentially wanting to look into communications that were happening between like the Philippine consulate and also like LAPD with like the Philippine National Police. Just because like, yeah, some of our community members have been like experiencing like surveillance based on our activism. And I remember at one like previous meeting, it kind of like we kind of got like too busy and we didn't really keep up with it. But I remember seeing that or we uncovered that the Philippine consulate was in contact with like the Wiesenthal Center. So that would be something we'd be interested in looking into as well.
Yeah, so in terms of this one, let's practice just turning this into a records request really quickly. It can literally be very simple. Angela, right?
Yes.
Could you try out loud just framing this as like a request for records, this first one, and just so that I can just type it here?
I could try. I don't have like experience with this, but I guess like we'd want to see any emails that would, yeah, any emails that like, but within the period of like maybe a year.
Can I say the last year?
Yeah, the last year. Between I don't know what the address is for the Philippine consulate. I'm so sorry. I wish someone else was here, but
I honestly think you can just say between the Philippine consulate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Although if you wanted to, what you could do is you could look up the Philippine consulate online. Whoops. Sorry, give me a second. And look at like what, if you look at like contact, let me show you. So this is the Philippine consulate website, right?
Yes. Ew.
And then it just says, wait, I don't know why it's not letting me get to the actual website. Okay. Oh, it's this pop-up window. Anyway, you could go to the website and you could just click oh, here we go, contact us, and look at like what email addresses they have here. And it's probably got some kind of like here, check it out. So this is the domain, one of the domains they potentially may use. Another one might be something like here, this .gov.ph. That's like any government official of the Philippines. But if you wanted to just try this, what you could do is you could be like, we want to say any emails between, emails with the domain like that and LAPD or something like that. And that could be your whole request. Or it could just be with the between the Philippine consulate and the LAPD. It can be that simple. So we're a huge proponent of people submitting this. And Angela, if you at ABLA would like to try drafting this and would want us to look over it before you submit it, we'd be happy to. If you submit it and you're starting to like they reject it or they give you any kind of bullshit, you could reach out to us and we could see if we could help. This one is a little bit harder, the one between the Philippine consulate and the Simon Wiesenthal Center. And that's because one of them is a potentially foreign government, and this one is a nonprofit. It's not a government agency. So you might have to think of what is a public institution that might be in contact with both and ask for emails that include both of them. Does that make sense, Angela?
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's really helpful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. This was great. I mean, honestly, this could be your request if you wanted to.
Okay, yeah, we'll try to draft that. And you said it was like the working group is on first and third Thursdays, right?
Yes, at 5 p.m.
Okay, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Are there any other brainstorms for public records, either about Path or about the school anonymous reporting app, or about something that you or your organization is working on? We have a last couple minutes left.
I don't know, but that anonymous reporting app is wild to me. Is there any way we can get like numbers of, I guess, like downloads, like how often it's used? I'm curious to see, like, because I just checked out the website and it's very dated. So I'm curious to see if, who is using it.
Who is using it? This is great. Yeah. We're planning on doing an entire public record brainstorm just about this app, potentially at the next meeting or sometime in LA Can. You're not local, right?
I'm moving to I'm from LA, but I'm moving
Okay.
back. I live in Miami right now. So
Okay.
I've been admiring your work, your coalition's work from afar.
Awesome. Well, it would be great to have you when you're here. And yeah, we would love to. So this is already a good start. And I'm going to try to consolidate. We got some questions about this at the last meeting too. And I need to make a full document with everybody's questions about it. But then I'll add these to that.
Yeah, I feel like an app like that would have some sort of like feature where it'd be like, oh, well, which school are you from? Especially since it's an LAUSD app. And then we can, kind of target those schools for trainings or whatnot.
I've actually checked out the app to see what it looks like, and it lets anybody make anonymous reports, not just if you're a student at a school. It's pretty wild.
I figured you need like a student ID or something.
You need a LAUSD staff ID for the other app. There's a partner app for this.
Okay.
I also tried to download to look at, and the very first thing it shows you is like a login screen. But the LASAR is extremely public, which is wild. Okay,
And,
last
Celine had a question.
Celine did?
Yeah, if you want to read the chat. Will we continue to work on this at our research meeting or submit ASAP?
Oh, we can continue to work on this. Yeah, you don't have to get all your thoughts out today. We won't submit right now. All right, you all. Thank you for giving your thoughts and brainstorms. Suddenly got really dark around me. If there are any last announcements, Hamid? No?
Sorry for that. I was just going to post the flyers for the report launch on the surveillance of child protective services and DCFS. So the online launch is going to be, so here I just posted this. So, and then I'll post another flyer as well. The online launch is going to be on May 14th. That's on Mother's Day. This is a project, a partnership with Stop LAPD Spying Coalition and the Downtown Women Action Collective that is based out of LA Can. And this is part 2 of picking up on the report that we launched in September of 2021. So this goes into more details as well. So that's going to be online on this coming Sunday. And then we're having a community town hall event on Tuesday, May 23rd, which is the 4th Tuesday at 6 p.m. at LA Can. That'll be an in-person community town hall on this report as well. So please come and join us. Thank you.
Thanks, Hamid. I think that's it for us, you all. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Right.
Um,
Bye.